Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our November 6th meeting. Can I get a motion, please, that the agenda for the November 6, 2018 regular meeting of council be adopted as presented? Councillor Chouinard will make that motion. Any additions or deletions to said agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, that the minutes of the October 16th, 2018 regular meeting of council be adopted as presented? Councillor Sorensen will make that motion.
Excuse me, I just would like to speak to something in the
Sure.
minutes. Okay, I see that I move that council accept the memorandum regarding important dates for 2019 for information. Since that time, I found out that Councillor Chouinard has got a commitment on those dates in August, and I think he's contractually bound by it, and I would like to see us try to come up with a mutually acceptable date that we could all be there.
Okay, so that's been noted
Thank you.
by Councillor Wilkinson. We'll have a discussion offline, but we do need to complete that strategic planning session within a certain time
Right,
frame.
exactly.
So we'll go back,
Okay,
but
thank you.
I'm
No,
not
when
going
I
to make
made
any
the motion-
promises at this time. So,
Yeah, I just had no idea yet.
Okay, so thank you for that, Councillor Wilkinson. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, the minutes of the October 9th or October 16th, 2018 organizational meeting of council be adopted as presented?
I'll make that.
Councillor Bevan will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, the minutes of the October 23rd, 2018 special meeting of council be adopted as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Councillor Chouinard will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. No public hearings, no delegations. We'll move on to reading of bylaws. Can I get a motion, please, that council give second reading to bylaw number 2228, which amends the council code of conduct bylaw number 2212. Councillor Bevan will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, that council give third reading to bylaw number 2228? Councillor Byro will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, that council approve policy FR-1, financial reporting policy as presented? Councillor Bevan will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? We did discuss this at committee at length. Councillor Bevan?
Yeah, I'm just, we talked about this before, and I'm glad to see that we made the changes on bringing down the amounts from $1 million to $500,000, so on and so forth. I think it gives us a better idea of what we're going over on and what's spending and stuff like this, and I'm glad we made these changes. It just helps us out with more transparency for us too, plus our ratepayers out there too.
All right, any other questions or comments? Just further to Councillor Bevan's point, I really like the quarterly budget updates. I know we just had one here a few weeks ago, and I think it gives us a lot more better information to work off of. So appreciate administration working on that. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carried. And can I get a motion that council rescind policy and procedure FP-4, payment of accounts? Councillor Byro will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, that council approve?
Mayor Zaharis,
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Bevan.
No, go ahead. I was going to say the same you're going to say.
I was just going to suggest you're on to the RFP for the rec complex.
Yes.
May I suggest before that you ask for this motion that the amount be set at $400,000 just to allow for any contingency or finalization of that process. Once that's done, it will just give administration a little bit of wiggle room with that. The amount presented there is the actual amount of the RFP. Yes.
Okay.
And
So
also the motion would need to, or council would need to make a second motion in terms of funding it and specify where that funding will come from. And I'm sure Sarah will be happy to direct council.
Okay. So I'm going to ask the question, and if council agrees, then you can put your hand up in support, or you can make a separate motion if you so wish. Can I get a motion, please? The council approve awarding of the RFP for the demolition of the Edson and District Recreation Complex to Visco Demolition Contractors LTD in the amount of $400,000 plus GST. Councillor Byro will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? I know we have Mr. Desatel with us. I don't know if you want to just give us a brief update on this process.
We received 8 proposals in total. The bulk of them were in the $400,000 to $500,000 range. Visco was the one we're recommending because of the price, which made up 50% of the scoring. The other elements they scored very high on as well. Visco is also the company that is just finishing up with the Evergreen site. They had very good references, and I think the whole town could see the work that they did at Evergreen. It was very methodical, very well done from what we could tell. And in speaking with them, they're quite confident that they can finish this job ahead of schedule as well.
All right, thank you, Mr. Desatel. We'll open the floor to questions or comments. Councillor Chenard and then Councillor Sorensen.
Yes, I would have to tend to agree. Like a lot of times you question the lowest bidder, but in this case we did accept it, and I would agree with you as well. If we want to see what their work was, the school they took down, that was done timely and looked very professional and no complaints. So I believe this is the right company to do the job for us.
All right, Councillor Sorensen and then Councillor Wilkinson and Councillor Byer.
All right, through the chair, I just wanted to comment that I'm very pleased that this company is able to divert 100% of the concrete and metal from our landfill. It's a huge plus for me.
All right, thank you, Councillor Sorensen. Councillor Wilkinson.
Through the chair, I'd just like to thank you very much for doing your due diligence on their recommendations, and we do see it right here when it happens to be Evergreen. And again, echoing Councillor Sorensen, it is great not to have our landfill filled with this.
All right, thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Byer.
Through the chair to administration, to echo my colleagues here, I also appreciate that everything won't be going in the landfill. I do have one question though. Where do we plan on taking the money from to fund the project? It wasn't listed under financial implications.
Thank you. The recommendation would be that we would fund this from the revenue sharing reserve.
Okay. Thank you. Any other further questions or comments? Councillor Bevan.
Through the chair, I don't know if you can answer it or not, but as you're doing the demolition and that, will they be looking after removing all the windows and stuff like that, the stuff that can be salvageable? Like you got windows, doors out there, you got some beams in there and that. Is there any chance that as they take them out, if the citizens want to come down and either pick them up or buy them or something, is there, because I know at the Evergreen here, they had big beams out there and sheds, they said, come down and grab what you want if you want or pay for them or whatever. Can you do something there? Because you've got a lot of windows out there that could go to greenhouse, good home or something, any place like that.
Let's go ahead, CEO Derek.
Certainly, we would leave that at the discretion of the contractor, and if they were comfortable or wanted to facilitate a process like that, it's really at the contractor's discretion once we turn the site over to them for demolition. I don't see why they wouldn't engage in a similar process if they did something like that at Evergreen.
Yeah, I'd like to see that because, you know, why send it to the landfill when it's good, you know, I mean, you can build a nice greenhouse with it, for example, or whatever, now with those windows and stuff up there, they're very expensive stuff in that. So, I hope they engage it with the public or whatever.
Okay.
Or let us so either.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Bevan. Councillor Chenard and then Councillor Byer.
I would have to agree with Councillor Bevan's comment, but on the same token where they ran into problems, it held up them demolishing the building. So it would have to be in a timely fashion. But a lot of times when people move into salvage, they don't show up on the time, and that was one problem they ran into. So if people want to, I would agree with the comments, contact the company at the proper time, and they will set a time and date, because every time a building comes down, people want, but they don't show up. And so we don't want to hold up the procedure, even though there is value to salvaging.
All right, thank you, Councillor Byer.
Through the chair to administration, previously it was mentioned that there might be an opportunity to sell some of the structures in the inside of the building, not necessarily the windows and doors, but things like kitchen appliance like items that are cupboards and things like that. Is that still an option?
Go ahead.
The way we created the RFP was in order to help offset some of the costs. once the building is deemed to be ready for demolition, everything that's in the building goes to the contractor. So whatever's left, they have the option of decommissioning and salvaging and selling what remains.
Basically, the contractor will salvage whatever they feel has value out of there, and I think that's partly what resulted in the price points that we saw, which are considerably lower than some of the early estimates that we had as well. So.
All right, thank you. Councillor Wilkinson?
Through the chair, have we moved our tables and chairs out of there though?
We are currently in the process of speaking with the schools, the interested parties, to for them to take possession of the chairs and tables.
Good, and the flagpoles, of course, for Bobby.
All right, thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Any other comments? If I just may, I think I know that people have differing opinions on this decision. I think we've batted it around for over a year now. I think it is totally the right decision for our community moving forward as we move forward at looking at a new facility. The fact is that our studies have shown since 2006 that this is a facility that is underutilized and people would like something more centrally located. I know that people have some emotional attachment to it, and I certainly understand that, especially those that were involved in the creation of it. But I think in order for us to move forward, I think this is the best decision, and it also allows our golf club to be in control of their own destiny moving forward. So very happy to see that this amount has come in way under what we originally thought it was going to be. So I think this is the right decision moving forward. Go ahead, CEO Derricotte.
If I may, I think you're approaching calling the question there, and just before you do, the motion does not currently identify the funding source, and so either it would need to be amended to include the funding source, or just to reiterate, there would need to be an additional motion identifying the funding source. Either of those is acceptable to administration.
Okay, so can we have a friendly amendment to that? Who moved that? Yeah, you moved that, okay. So we will say that's coming from the revenue sharing
reserve.
All right, thank you. I'll call the question now. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, that council accept for information the attached letter from the Evergreens Foundation informing council that the foundation will be consolidating with the Pembina Housing Authority and will be incorporating 51 additional housing units into their operations. Councillor Bevan will make that motion. And I don't know if Councillor Wilkinson, you'd like to speak to this as you're the board rep?
Yes, we were approached when we were at the seniors conference in April of last year. We were approached by a government official asking us if we would take over the operation of these units from Pembina Housing Authority. We weren't just jumping at it right away. Our CIO wanted to check that they were in the same condition as other buildings that Evergreen Foundation is responsible for. So she did a tour and was satisfied with that. So we will, when this gets finalized, be taking over the operation. There is a lady out there who was the CAO in that area, and she's going to continue working for Evergreens Foundation. She's very excited to come and work with an organization where she has more resources to work with. And they also have a 3-story apartment building out there that there's talk that they would like us to take over. The Lions Club are currently operating it, but they're very short of members. But it has a $380,000 mortgage on it, so we're not about to take on the mortgage. If and when the government pays that off, we also may take over the operation of that. But that's where we are right now.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Chenard, you have a question?
Actually, through to the council rep on Evergreen, Councillor Wilkinson. Which building is this?
They are separate buildings, like they're
No, but where is the building?
Oh, the building itself, the
Yeah, because it
3-story
said,
one?
no, it says 51 additional units. I'm
Yes,
going
well,
there.
they're units throughout the town of Evansburg.
That's what I was trying to
Yeah,
figure out which
in that
building.
area, right.
So
I
that
drove
is-
around and just had a look at some of the different areas behind the seniors residence now. They've got 4 plexes, and then there's other single family units too.
So that is the building that the Good Sam's used to look after, is that correct?
No, that still is half and half with Evergreen Foundation and Good Sam. There may be changes on that later, but we're talking about social housing.
I was just curious for which building.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Chenard. Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carried. Move on to council committee reports. We are going back to October 16th, and we'll start with Councillor Byer.
Okay, so I've got 4 items on the list here. So on Wednesday, October 17th, I attended an Edson Library Board meeting, and CAO Derek Hutt was able to come to the meeting and speak on a few things that the board had questions on and clarify some things with the recent takeover on the building, although the assets changed in the books and just some items that were answered there. And as I mentioned before, the library is celebrating its 75th anniversary next year, so we've been doing a bit of planning on that. They're interested in doing some type of an event every month just to kind of showcase the 75 years. So they're working on that, and we're currently in our QP negotiations as well, due on December 31st. On Wednesday, October 24th, I attended the Economic Resilience Training for Community and Regional Leaders in Hinton with Councillor Sorensen and a few administrative members. That was a really interesting, and I've got permission on behalf of Councillor Curry as well to speak, because it is the board she's on with Community Futures. So they talked about the different phases of disasters and types of disasters and the breakdown on how a community recovers from them, which is something that I don't think I ever saw on TV at all. Like it was never something that's mentioned. We're really familiar with the different type of infrastructure needs on a residential or personal level, as well as at a municipal level, but nothing has been really put, or there hasn't been a lot of emphasis put on the business end of it. And that's what they talked about, was how we can prepare our businesses now with a plan before a disaster, so then if and when such a disaster may happen, getting right back on the ground right away, after, as soon as they can get back in, to making sure that they're stable and whatever help they need is available to them, is crucial to their longevity in the long term. They found that a huge trend on businesses that don't recover right away end up going out of business. So really interesting information on how you can help a business, and Nancy with CF was there, and she would be able to help anybody if they were wanting to get some information on that. And then on Monday, November 5th, I attended an Edson Library Board Policy Committee meeting. We've been working on updating our policy to reflect cannabis in the workplace, as well as reevaluating our current procurement policy to make sure it still meets our needs and is responsible for the taxpayers. And on, oh no, that was, sorry, I'm getting my dates wrong. It would have been the Monday prior, Kayla, sorry. And then on Monday, November 5th, I attended the Yellowhead Regional Library Board meeting in Spruce Grove. They just approved their 2019 budget. And as I mentioned earlier, they're likely going to have a 2% increase in their 2020 budget, which for Edson, that amounts to under $1,000 more to the budget. So it's not a huge increase, but still noted, because they haven't had an increase in 9 years. And Kevin Dodds is retiring, and Carla Palachuk was the chosen candidate for his position, and she's got a heap of education as well as experience to bring to the table. She's worked in numerous other areas all over the province. So that's my report.
Thanks, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Sorensen.
On October 24th, I also went to the Economic Resilience Training in Hinton with Councillor Bear, and she did an excellent job reviewing it. Some of the points that I can add to hers, the interesting thing they were talking about that I never really considered before, was the resilience and prevention phases. They were saying $1 spent during those phases can save you $4 later in actual recovery. And the other thing that I never really thought about was the flood of money and volunteers you're going to receive. So actually, lots of time there's too much resources to deal with the issue, and you need managers to handle nonprofit organization. You need managers to handle a volunteer army that's going to be knocking and being ready to help. So it's an interesting aspect of it. And as well, the support for businesses afterwards, because if you can't get a grocery store operating, then there's no point in moving your entire population back into the town. So very interesting, and I encourage everyone to participate and learn as much as they can on that subject.
Right, thank you. Councillor Wilkinson.
Okay, just to add to this, as FCSSA representative, when they had the fire in Fort McMurray, many of the managers went up there and they did exactly that. They organized the volunteers, what was gonna happen. So they are very useful behind the scenes sometimes. All right, my report, I had an Evergreen Foundation retreat, October 17th, 18th, 19th. We really had an enjoyable job working together as a board, and we made our goals for 6 months, which of course is to continue working on Parkland Lodge. We are continuing to plan and build a kitchen in the Jasper Lodge. Of course, there's 51 units that we have taken over from Pembina Housing. We're looking into an Aboriginal housing grants to upgrade the Grand Cache facility and have an Indigenous area as the inlet. And in Hinton, we met the consultants, Collier, and they're making the plans for expansion in Hinton as well, onto their seniors. So we're going to have a busy 6 months for sure. On the 31st, I had a site meeting at Parkland Lodge, and November 5th, we went and had a $30,000 presentation from Albanese Insurance, which Stephanie Village really was the one to organize it, to help the people funding the furniture for the building. So it really was a nice occasion, and I hope we get more community involvement.
All right, thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Just a quick question on the Parkland Lodge. How is construction progressing? Are we on schedule, or are we a little bit behind? I know
We're
it's
still
looking pretty
behind
good.
because
yeah.
of the muddy conditions. I think they're up to 326 rig mats that they have buried in the mud outside Parkland Lodge, which need to be dug up and taken out before they're
Yeah,
finished. Like,
yeah.
But it's unbelievable. Like, there's ruts like this if they happen to fall off a rig thing. So they're very happy. Now, I noticed today they had a blower blowing the snow off the roof to put the roofing on, and now once they get the windows in, they'll be able to work for the winter. And they have lots of workers there, very qualified people, and I think we're very lucky with Scott Builders.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Councillor Chenard.
Okay, October, all my meetings happen before this cut off. So October 23rd, and I guess we're all on that. So November 3rd, our special meeting that we had on Saturday, we all attended. Other than that, that's it for me.
Councillor Curry.
Okay, look at now, what date was it actually? On October 5th, I had a community features board meeting, and just a couple things to update. One thing just to know, the Western Economic Diversification, they're currently doing a women's grant that is for female entrepreneurs that is up to $100,000, and that is just for Western Canada. So if you guys know anyone, it's very competitive, but just a fairly big one. Another one too is right now, and I brought this with me, they're also doing a survey wanting to know what we are wanting, government's wanting to know what we are wanting to build the economy in Western Canada. This is, so it's recommended that all of us do this survey. It's due by November 16th, and they are taking the information to kind of plan forward and with funding. So kind of a big one for us to do. It was brought up, the resiliency program, and that is often the biggest issue after a natural disaster, is that there is no recovery plan. Kind of a nice thing to know, last year with the Rob fires, the county found out that there were some areas that they were struggling with communication because of cell service. So the county has purchased and has radios for all the different organizations if there were to be something, with that knowing, and especially with rural and stuff, to ensure that there is always full communication. A couple of really cool things happening with the youth. It's not going to happen this year here, but they have a lemonade stand that they're going to start in 2 communities, where it's going to be this process where young entrepreneurs can learn how to start a business, and then on the same day across the region, all the kids will be having their lemonade stand. So it's this idea to build up youth entrepreneurs. And then they're also looking at doing a camp for entrepreneurs. So I think that will really link with our youth council when we get that going. I'd be really interested to get them in. Our area did win. We won 2 provincial awards. The community, West Elder, Nancy did for being our manager, and then just for being a great, that we win like the You're Awesome award. And then the other, which they're really fantastic. The other one I just wanted to bring up is something new that just came up that was kind of neat, is that they've just finished and they've almost launched. It's a marketing website, database for agriculture, And so you can actually go on and find out where you can source, where you can buy anything for agriculture, so your beef, any of that. Where in your area, you can just go on and be like, I want this kind of beef. This is where I can get it in my area, this is how I can contact them. So it was just something they worked on to help build the agriculture industry.
Thank you. Councillor Benham.
Thank you. Just to read what Councillor Curry said on the lemonade stands and that, they're thinking that they'd like to get whoever's involved to build their own stand to show them, you know, okay, this is what it takes to build something, this is what it takes to get into business, you know, followed all the way through from the ground up and stuff like that, eh? And they're hoping to get a lot of response back and stuff like this. And I know some people in Edson, some groups in Edson ask, say, can we do it here? But they're thinking about it, but right now they're going to go 2 places, I believe. So even though they're being asked, they want to make sure that, you know, they get it right the first time, and then they'll expand it if it takes off and stuff like that. So they got a lot going here. On October 17th, I had an executive committee meeting in Community Futures West, and that we just rep from all the areas here come together. We just talked about a few things. The biggest thing we talked about was the uncertainty about Grand Cache. Well, how are they gonna stay with their board? You know, once they're taken over and that, are they gonna have to put somebody on there? Right now, the report we got is a status quo. Right now, they would still have 2 representatives from Grand Cache to come down and that. And even though they have some of their councils sitting with Greenview and that, Greenview is still there with them, so the CEO is pulling a hair out, kind of sort everything out there and stuff like that, but right now it's still going to be status quo with that. The other thing we kind of discussed was with the IRC, we give the loans out. How do we feel about if somebody wanted a loan for a cannabis store and that, eh? And we don't discriminate from anybody that if they apply, like any other business, we'll look at them, go through the whole criteria, seeing whether they got, you know, collateral, stuff like this and all this and that, and then we go over it and, you know, we look at it for sure. So right now, we haven't had anybody that's wanting to come forward for anything right now.
Have.
But I was just gonna say, I just got 2 things here I gotta look at here, because I'm the chair of the IRC. I have conference calls coming up now, so we'll have to make a decision on that. 23rd was a cow, November the 3rd was a budget workshop, and that is my report.
All right, thank you. And I've been away, so I have nothing to report. Just return back. Just return back. I had written October 3rd, but you were correct. November 3rd budget workshop. So that's my report. Thank you, everybody. Can I get a motion, please, that the account listing be accepted for information? Councillor Wilkinson will make that motion. And I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried. Questions from media and public regarding items from this council meeting?
Yes,
Go ahead, Ed.
Mr. Mayor. The Pembina Housing Authority announcement, was that included in this package, or was that a separate?
It should be in your package. It
Wasn't in the business package.
wasn't in the printed package? Okay, it was a sundry item, so I'm not sure if we can share that with the media.
I don't see why not.
Okay, so we'll get that to you.
Okay, good.
Right.
And second question, the demolition, didn't that, it's probably in this here, but that was a lot more than the 400,000 that was now. Well, it was projected, I think, a lot more than that, wasn't it?
Yeah, our original projection was anywhere from 1 to 1.5 million for demolition. That was a very rough estimate, so we're very happy that it's coming well under that. And of course, as you've seen, we built in a bit of a contingency for any unknowns that might come up as well.
Right. Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none?
Oh,
Oh, yeah, Mr. Linford, go ahead.
Just on the demolition, if the golf club was looking for additional information on the start date, the scope of the demolition, like what area of the property is gonna be used, where we have to avoid, would we contact?
Yeah, so administration will be in contact with the golf club to ensure that we're not interfering with operations and working with you on that, so.
yeah, so I think if I may, Your Worship,
Go
once we've formally engaged the contractor, we'll probably have a site meeting shortly thereafter, and we'll certainly include the golf club as soon as is relevant in terms of impact, potential impact, or what you can expect to see in the next few months there.
Thank you. Now I'll call the question. Can I get a motion, please, to move in camera?
I'll make the motion.
Councillor Sorensen will make the motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried. Everyone, can I get a motion, please, for adjournment? Councillor Schnard will make that motion. All those in favor? Motion
I would
carried.
make a motion.